Omre Mikhail Aïvanhov. The Four Living Ones. Tarifa and Andalucia. June 28, 2019. Well, dear friends, I'm extremely happy to see you again, and this time in southern Spain, isn't it? So I convey to you all my blessings, and I hope that we will spend a good time together to answer as always your questions and what causes you problems or questions during this period. So, dear friend, I'm listening. Sister, I feel a deep peace most of the time, but the joy is not there, it is only there occasionally. What can we do to let this joy grow? So there, dear friend, peace is already something extremely important. The problem may be that you have, or that you have for some people, it is that you expect to experience joy with object, in any case something similar. Joy, naked, as Ebba said, is simply a state, I would say a kind of silent and inner jubilation rather than an explosive joy. Of course, there are moments of smiling and so on, but don't be absolutely alarmed to be able to make a difference between the deep peace that is there and the naked joy Ebba was talking about. Both, even if it is not the same thing, it is a form of equivalence. Because of course you each have, despite the surpassing and transcendence, if I can say, of your person, of your personality, you still retain traits, I would say, of character, and you know very well that you have more or less facility to smile or to let joy emanate, so if you will, take care of being in this peace, and joy itself can only occur, of course. You don't have to look for it, there's no technique as such. Naked joy flows directly from the state of love named agape by Ebba. So if you live this through peace, it is already something very important. Today there are countless of you on this planet living, if I may say so, through intense transformations. And in these intense transformations, you are not all at the same degree of this transformation, at the same stage. There are some who are still in processes of vibrations, others of tremors, others you perceive energies or states of vibrations that affect certain parts of your body, and in terms of the mood or translation of this agape, you also know that in terms of perceptions of what is happening in the rib cage, it is deeply different. There are some who feel all the energies, all the vibrations, and others who are in real naked joy, without feeling anything at the vibratory level. It was explained by the chief head in different satsangs. It is quite logical, even if there is, I would say, a form of catch-up if you still have time, and it is the case at the moment, which means that the steps, if I can say so, that many of you have lit for decades, I lived very quickly now. So of course, there are some who vibrate, there are some who no longer need the vibrations, there are some who feel the chakras of others who feel the entities, others who feel absolutely nothing, but the witness of agape. Above all, it is this peace that cannot be compared to anything, and this naked joy that appears spontaneously in your life, that you do not have to seek. And above all, you are beginning to see very many of you seeing different forms of change happening, even sudden changes in your lives in all sectors, whether it concerns your health, your professions, your homes. There are many events that occur in all areas of your lives, and which are all, I remind you, exclusively related to the intelligence of the light that will place you in the best state, not for you, not for your little person, but to unmask and liberate what you really are, that is, agape, even before the manifestation of the first consciousness. As Ebba told you, and as Baidu told you, and as Ebba told you, you can't go wrong when you live it, because you can only recognize what you are beyond creation. It's very simple. So if you have the impression that you do not recognize yourself in the agape state, it is quite simply that it is not yet there, and that perhaps you are in stages of transformations that can sometimes seem unpleasant to you for the character, but which, I assure you, are all, without exception, to be linked to a facilitation, I would say, of the emergence of agape, of who you are beyond being, quite simply. So of course, it is not always pleasant under the circumstances, whereas you can see that for other brothers and sisters it is extremely pleasant. But during the course of what is unpleasant in your life, in the sectors that concern you at the moment, it is extremely precise, it leads you, even if you can't see clearly, to the greatest clarity and to agape. So for some it's going to be to stop you, for others it's going to be to lose a job or find a husband or divorce, but you can't do anything about it. The transformations that occur can no longer bind, can no longer be triggered only or exclusively by your will, but exclusively by the intelligence of the light. And of course, if you do not live agape, you may have difficulty accepting these sometimes brutal changes that can occur in certain conditions of your lives. But you will see that right after that, even if it is unpleasant at any level, there is always more agape, always more joy and more radiance of that particular state that is beyond the state, whatever it is, and beyond being. So don't be alarmed at all. The most important thing, I would say, in this period that you are living and that will be lived during this month of July, is to remain imperturbable, not by an effort of will, but as has been repeated countless times during our absence to us elders, to let you cross over, to embrace and accept. The more honest and truthful your acceptance, the more certain you are that just behind it there will be a big burst of laughter, because at that moment you will find yourself. Although you may sometimes feel lost or bored or annoyed or even annoyed or dismayed by certain events that may occur in your lives right now, I reassure you, they are all linked to the liberation of your person, that is to say, to be liberated from yourself, to believe that you are a story that must evolve or that must access God or known what. So nudity, stay calm, embrace everything that happens, especially when you don't understand and especially when you have the impression that you have to, in a way, react or oppose yourself to get rid of something. You can be sure that it is at this level that the alchemy of transmutation, or rather transubstantiation, takes place from your physical body and the body of eternity in the absence of a body and in the absolute and eternal truth and before after the dream of creation. And that will appear to you whatever your state today, whatever your vibration, whatever the presence on the front of your life of your character or the supraconsciousness or absolute that you are. You will find that right after that there will be a big burst of laughter. So I know, it's not always easy to let go of what has to be, but you'll find that very, very quickly in a few days, you'll have no other choice than to agree with what's happening. It had been said, the more the chaos of the world grows, the more you will be in that naked joy. Not as a kind of unhealthy or morbid satisfaction with climatic, geological or other events that concern all the elements but also your lives, but on the contrary as the result of the character's relaxation and the relaxation, I would say, of humanity's global dream and of all creation. That's how it works, that's how it was told to you, and that's how you live it, or that you will live it very soon. I think Faham mentioned a period of a little over 2 weeks during the month of July. If you have looked at these dates, you will see that the first one does indeed correspond to what is called an eclipse of the sun, but far beyond that, to a very particular form of alignment that brings you right back to your feet, I would say, in the experience of what happens in the precession of the equinoxes during the journey of a 25,000 year zodiacal cycle. You're in the middle of it and we are happy, we who are in you and beside you, for the moment, to see these answers of the human being who goes more and more towards his freedom even if he believes he is affected in one way or another. So everything that happens has to happen, no matter what you do. That is a certainty you are facing and you will be facing, if I may say so, more and more of these kinds of situations. But not only climatic, but also your inner moods, where you will notice that kinds of emotions, mental activities, reminiscences, memories, can appear like that when you were perfectly quiet, and perfectly happy. Don't worry about it. Continue to think and vibrate if you vibrate this infinite love, or to maintain the natural state for others of a consciousness, and all this will be treated directly, if I can say, by the intelligence of the light that you are also, but on which your little person who is agitated in all directions can absolutely nothing, and it will also be for all the brothers and sisters who still dream a lot, to make them live a form of nightmare and an awakening, evidently. The important thing is your awakening. It is not to continue to dream things that are very pleasant or to dream worse things that are even more unpleasant. But simply to wake you up, and I would say, in this case, and in what has already happened for many months but which has had a considerable emphasis in recent days, to remain calm, to trust, not in you, but in what you are, if you do not know it yet. Because it can only blossom, it can only manifest itself in the most gentle way from the moment you remain calm. It is not an empty word or an illusory statement, it is up to you to verify this, and you will easily see it in all the circumstances of your lives. If you let yourself be carried away by a mood, an emotion, a memory, or a worry of any kind, try to stay calm and you will see what happens. That's how, if I may say so, the dream ends or ends. You wake up, and sometimes dreams don't wake up. You want to keep dreaming, then in these cases, you will have a nightmare that will wake you up. It's as simple as that, and it's going to be, I would say, more and more intense, more and more powerful, more and more amazing and joyful at the same time, every day that goes by from now on. That is what I can answer to that in terms of joy. I overflowed a little bit, but it's the same thing. So if you'd like to ask the next question, I'm listening. Sister, is it still appropriate to propose groups in eco-villages? No, you have the importance of finding yourself. You are more likely to find yourself in bed than in an organization of any kind. You do not need any particular environment, it is the indoor environment that is important. If you're in a city, it is because you must be there. If you're in an ashram, it is because you must be there. If you're in a cave, you must be there. But today, try as much as you can to let the intelligence of the light decide. But don't put yourself, I would say, in long-term projects or projects to escape anything. For example, because I said it when I replied earlier, if there is something that bothers you, it bothers the person, but if it also bothers your eternity, the intelligence of the light will take care of it very quickly, and very quickly you will see that by yourself, you will try to stay, to remain calm, to embrace what is happening in its entirety. So yes, if you have the opportunity to travel near water, if you have the opportunity to walk in a natural environment with trees, yes, it does. But do not consider, in relation to this particular and intense period, major revolutions in the living environment unless they have of course been planned for years and are being carried out. But from where you are today, above all, be confident, embrace what is happening, and you will become clearer and clearer in your head and more lucid about what is happening. But if you try from your little person to trigger things, to supposedly be more comfortable, well, it won't happen at all like that. That's what I can say. Either way, you will be forced, and at the same time, as you go along, convinced that the intelligence of the light will achieve what is most useful for you, and without any request from you, and especially without any reckless decisions. I would say, for example, there will happen such an event in such a country, very serious, and at that moment you will imagine very quickly leaving. You didn't understand. You're in exactly the right place, I would say today, where you are precisely during this period, already for many weeks or months. But don't imagine that, because you are vibrating, or because the brothers and sisters are in naked joy, you'll have to regroup, or move, or leave this country, or that region, or that house. The intelligence of light takes care of it for you, and you will very easily see the difference between the order of the will of your little person and the intelligence of the light. If it is of the order of the intelligence of the light, everything will be done in an extremely fluid and light way. If it's on the order of your little person, you'll see that all obstacles will be in a hurry on your way. Then you can blame anyone you want, but in the end, it's only you who's responsible. Either you are in the character who imagines that today everything must be changed quickly, or you are the intelligence of the light who can decide that everything must change. But you can't know that. The only result is that if you're in deep fighting to change things, linked to your personal desires, you will find that it does not work, that you will have obstacles all the time. These obstacles are neither punishments nor nothing, it is the intelligence of the light. Because whatever you think, during this period, you are very exactly, every day and every hour, exactly in the right place to live what is to be lived. And it is the same for this meeting, or for other meetings that have taken place and will take place. In one case you will have all the facilities to live it, and if it is the case that it is not the intelligence of the light, but your little person who decides, you will have obstacles all the time. It's simple, and besides, if you let go, you'll see that things happen differently, and that at that moment, naked joy simply emerges, spontaneously. But don't believe in this period, because you will make alignments like some of you and we made you do a long time ago, that you were alive with a gape. To live agape independently of the techniques without technique that Eba and Head Chief have communicated to you. The easiest way is to be present, and it is therefore to embrace everything that happens with the same mood. Practice this and you will see it become lighter and lighter. Oppose the intelligence of the light and you will see that it will be more and more complicated and difficult. And the more you get into the resistance of your person who wants to do something, move, divorce, change homes, change cars or anything else, the more obstacles you will have. and you will actually be brought, as I told you, to have that your life is a dream and that it turns into a nightmare, not to punish you but to really and concretely free you from everything that can bother you, but not from what you think you're bothering you. What the intelligence of the light decides. It's not quite the same thing. So at the time, many years ago, I spoke about the response of the heart, yes or no, by the vibration of the heart. Today it is even more direct. Either is going well and you are, I would say, on the very right path, to let the intelligence of the light that you'll be. Either you notice that you only have obstacles, at that moment you have to accept that what you are, is not really right for you and to live agape. And it's really something that will appear to you with more and more intensity, and I would even say at the level of your character as something more and more clear. You'll see that there are choices that lead to fluidity, ease, and that even before you put them in your head, even before you act on them, that will put your mind backwards with questions without stopping, and interrogations without stopping. So if you have made the other choice, which is the choice of the intelligence of light, at that time you will see that inner peace and clarity. And that in relation to any event in your life, you cannot escape this rule. It is the fusion, as you know, of the simulacrum and the sacred. It is the fusion within the very dream of creation, of the absolute that you always live more and more to rediscover and recognize yourself. As I said, you can only recognize yourself. That is to say, whatever your vibratory states, whether you are living or energetic, or what you understand or what you have to live, either leads, and I am talking about here, to those who have the crowns activating as well as to those who have never felt energies. If you agree with the intelligence of the light, everything will be fluid. If you disagree, it will become very complicated. And it's the same thing, for example, through meetings. You see it here, for example, I have also seen it in Quebec. There is a harmony that is easy to set up and everything goes normally, there are no obstacles, there are no things that are not right. It is the same in your life today, and I invite you to ask yourself the one question to see how your life is simply unfolding today. If you have to divorce and it is the intelligence of the light, everything will be simple. If you want a divorce but it comes from you, you'll get in the way all the time. And it will be the same with your decisions, travel, attending a meeting, doing a new job and everything. So you only have two possibilities of observation and it will get stronger every day. That's why it was important that I warn you before the 2nd of July. It is that everything that will happen in your life, that you feel the vibrations and energies, that you feel and experience peace only, or that you do not experience any of that. All your life, your dream, your character, in all areas of your lives, you'll see. Either is extremely simple or it is complicated, and there is no other answer than the one I gave you. If it is simple, fluid, it is the intelligence of the light. If it is resistant and it goes wrong, it is your person who interferes with the intelligence of the light. I repeat, this will apply to everyone regardless of your age, regardless of your health, regardless of your activities, regardless of your situations in the different areas of your life. You can't ignore it. You will find that brothers and sisters all of a sudden start having a life where everything is easy. I am not talking about gent or no money, I am not talking about that, but that everything is done spontaneously, easily. And for other brothers and sisters, you will find that they will have obstacles in their way, that they will be confronted with resistance, delays, impromptu, detestable changes, so you can be sure that it comes from your character. So it is a landmark that will become infallible, beyond agape, beyond naked joy and beyond this state of beatitude, that you are living for many of you now. You can continue. Sister, I will allow myself a direct question that is related to what you are saying. Everything made it easy for me to come and live in Tarifa, where there is water and wind. And while living at times in senseless states of love and agape, I live in extremely strong emotional states that destabilize me, which are often linked to abandonment, as if what was called before the little devil, were totally reactivated. And, if. Yes, it's the abandonment of what? Not the syndrome of abandonment linked to your memory, but which resonates with it. It is the feeling of abandonment, quite simply, of dream. It means that somewhere, subconsciously perhaps, there is still a certain form of attachment to the dream, whatever the state of love lived. You know, when consciousness has dreamed so much, and I'm not even talking about this enclosed earth, I'm talking about everywhere. Sometimes, even if you know it and alive it, there is a process that you call the mourning that needs to be done. So of course, it is not the stages of collective mourning that were many years ago, Shri or Bendo, of course. But it also concerns the mourning that needs to be done. And as you say, if you came to this city with ease, it's not now that you have to change it, is it? That means you have to let the wind blow through you. What is wind? The wind blows where it wants and when it wants, and I invite you to look. Here you are in a junction of the place of 2 continents and 2 seas. It is the junction that had been by Fehwan, the junction of the 4 Orients, is not it? There are also the 4 Hayat Kadesh who are at work in a preferential way in certain places on the planet, and this one is part of it through the air element. Air is movement, it is also the throat chakra that is linked to the ether and that will be related to any feeling of letting go of something. And of course, even if you experience this unspeakable love, you notice it, variations in mood, and I can even tell you that your variations in mood are linked to the orientation of the wind. Depending on whether the wind is from the south or the north, the mood is not the same, but that's what you had to live for, not to flee, so to cross. Because there is also somewhere the mourning of consciousness. Of course. And you are certainly, necessarily even if it is for you, if it is your character who opposes it, because you can't stand mood swings. Mood variations, if there are memories, emotions of abandonment, it concerns the person. So it doesn't concern you when you're in love. So in one case you're free from the person, and in another case the person would have to take his setback and slaps. So accept what you yourself have implemented, and which has implemented itself naturally and easily, whatever the situation may be. But for example, if you imagine coming out of these states of wind and emotions that are present here, if it is not the intelligence of the light, you'll have the possible and unimaginable obstacles to leave the place. Because if it were related to where you shouldn't be, you wouldn't have made it already, and you would already have left it no matter what you say and no matter what you want. So here too, it is a problem, indeed, of acceptance, of clarity. But I remind you that when you're in the natural state, there are states of love as you say indescribable. And when the character comes back, well, there are emotions. It is not the same thing, and it is not the same being who lives the state of love and who lives the emotions. In one case, it is the fusion of being and non-being through the character, and in the second case, it is the expression of the character. No matter what you say. And it is precisely, not just these comings and goings as it was a few years ago, but precisely, the fact, for those who live agape, of feeling at times habits that come back, emotions, memories, wounds of abandonment or others for that matter, that it is in these moments that this unspeakable love must be most present. You must not give substance and hold on to the emotions that are crossed, they belong to the character, to the story, but not to the unspeakable love that you are. All you have to do is accept it, to understand that you no longer have to move from a state of love to something else, but it is precisely what is happening in this period, which began a few weeks ago, but which is intensifying considerably for everyone, that the solution is found. And then when you experience it, you will laugh at yourself and your moods. You will never again be able to accept that these states of injury are yours. The wounds belong to the person and the character, not to who you really are, so there is also a problem of identification, or even monopolization of these emotions, which at the level of supraconsciousness, make you believe that it is you. It's a deception of your own brain. And it requires, as I said, clarity and lucidity, and living this clarity and lucidity requires when there are these moods, especially when it is not serious illnesses that require care, it is moods, but simply you nourish them simply by paying interest or simply because it derives your supraconsciousness towards the person. Understand that it is a game between the character, the being and the not being. So of course, there are demonstrations happening and I said there would be more and more, but in your case it's exactly that. When you get tired of having emotions, abandonment wounds that sometimes manifest themselves in terrible ways, you will drop it naturally. But as long as you pay attention to it by wanting to know why, wanting to understand why, you give them body. You give them something important and you return during the space of a few hours, a few days, a character, a story, and it is precisely in this natural coming and going that comes the acceptance and that comes the transubstantiation, which will begin. I specify it from the outset for all the brothers and sisters incarnate of the earth, not by vibratory processes or opening the chakras or waves of life, or ecstasy, but by a mechanism of generalized tremors of the physical body. This is the beginning of transubstantiation. It is the moment when your body will no longer vibrate but will tremble, and so much that it will disappear on its own. It is the white paradise, and that is what is approaching and increasingly perceptible wherever you are on this planet. Whether you are open or closed does not change the matter. You will notice that when your body is at rest, either you burn up, you have heat. It has already been explained, but now it is much more serious, if I can say. And this gravity is your freedom, and the body trembles. It is not a neurological tremor but, if you prefer, a slow vibration that takes the whole body. You will notice it in the evening at bedtime, in the morning when you wake up, or when you are lying down. This is the beginning of white heaven for you. You don't need a vision, an image, a story, a scenario, but simply to embrace what is happening, and you will also become more and more joyful and true. Take advantage of the moments when these tremors of the whole body are there to remain quiet. Observe if you want this process of tremor or slow vibration. But it is the real and concrete disappearance of your body, your identity, your character in this mode in its entirety. You're coming out of the dream. You wake up and it's happening now. The elementary activity has been growing for more than a year now, but you haven't seen anything yet. Because from now on, beyond the elements, the impulses of the intergalactic confederation of free worlds through the Mikhail forces, meteorites for example, through the presence and radiance of all the vessels of the intergalactic confederations, the alignment with the galactic center, the alignment of Napier which is beginning to take shape. You can only notice at the same time this joy, and I have just told you, this fine and rather slow tremor that will run through your whole body. This is the beginning of the white paradise, individually and collectively. Any other questions? Question. Hello OMA. In case a somewhat personal question can be asked. For almost a year, I have been bothered by an almost permanent ball between the throat and larynx, with mucus sometimes rising. Of course, I'm going through this, but given the length of time it takes, is it possible that it's still related to the ongoing process? Both. Both. But of course, it doesn't mean that you can't stay still, but eventually you can consult a doctor or therapist. But you, at least, not to wonder. Let others wonder about your health and let them find it, whether it is physical, energetic, causal, chakras, whatever. But of course, as I said just before, you will all find, even if you have never had anything at the throat chakra, that it is the energy center, at the character level, that is extremely stressed. Because it is the energy center that corresponds, at the level of the person, to mourning, loss, and the need to express. But to express what? Not words, to express the eternity that you are, through this character. So, of course, you're extremely numerous to see this kind of fragility or manifestations that can be multiple, related to the throat chakra. Whether they are your centers of expression, if you want, or whether you've never had anything by the throat, it doesn't change anything, you see. So take care of it. And I think the chief head said there was a stone that worked on everything now, full it. Then put on a full it. Embracing, as has been said, crossing over does not prevent you from solving anything, but not by your questioning. You don't ask yourself the question, when you have a discomfort, of where it comes from, and why, and how. Discharge yourself of this, get a therapist and don't worry about it anymore. Move on to something else. It's called putting the burden back on. When you're told to cross over, it doesn't also mean being careless. It simply means that what is happening in your life, as in your body, today, unlike what many of you, at the energy and consciousness level, were doing, to find causality, to find alternative medicines or therapies, which made it possible to treat and understand, you no longer have to understand anything. You have everything to live for. Don't worry about understanding anymore. So if you have a problem, put it in the hands of a therapist of any kind and you stay calm. That's what you have to understand. I don't know if the chief head has explained it enough, but when you are told not to do anything, Yes, you don't look for noon to 2 p.m. If you have a divorce problem or a legal problem, put everything in the hands of a lawyer, but without investing yourself. It means, to unload the burden, that it is valid in all areas of your life. Do not take problems on board, even if they have to be solved. And I tell you, that the intelligence of the light, could also trigger problems. But, you shouldn't be stupid and do nothing. When you are told not to do anything, it is in your brains, in your thinking, in explanations, in understanding. Talk to a professional and wash your hands of it. It's as simple as that. You must be available. And you are not available if you start thinking and trying to understand, explain, overtake or erase. Put all this into the hands of the one who can and takes care of it. Discharge yourself of what you put yourself in charge. Just because you will understand why, doesn't mean you will be better. Just because you will understand something that is happening in your body or in your life, it will not only disappear, but you will be lighter. That's because you discharge yourself, and discharging yourself does not mean ignoring it. It simply means trusting the specialist, who is in charge of either the law, your body or what you want, and you wash your hands of it. You'll then be much more available. Do you understand that? This is very important, especially for the coming weeks. I'm listening to you. Voice. Is putting limits on a teenager's mobile phone for his or her own good inappropriate due to too much control, or should we let it happen? Don't worry about the cell phones, for now, it doesn't matter. Soon, you'll have no more. Voice. And a question from the same person. How can I bring peace to my family? That's impossible. Be at peace yourself and peace will be. If you want to bring peace to your family, I repeat, is it your personal will or the intelligence of the light? The difference is very simple to make. If you try to bring peace to your family and it is linked to you, all the means you will use will fail. If it is the intelligence of the light, whatever means you use, it will succeed. So it's up to you to decide whether the problems get bigger or smaller. It is up to you to understand that it is enough for you to be at peace so that peace may be around you, especially in your family. But if you are not at peace and it is the character who wants to act, today it will no longer work and less. So don't ask yourself how to bring peace, perhaps the discord that exists is linked to the intelligence of light. You have no way of knowing, unless you are really in a constant, unchanging agape, where you know very well that everything that happens is exactly where it belongs. This is the case for all those who are in agape whatever they are living. Because if you're in true agape and you start questioning yourself to solve something, you will find that agape is moving away, seems to be getting smaller. And that is unbearable for the one who lives agape. This is also how it is to become lucid, and that clarity is achieved in this chemistry and alchemy between the physical body, the body of eternity, and the true sacred, which is the beatitude of agape. Everything you used to use before, if it was related to you, no longer works, in families and for your body. If it is the intelligence of light, then you will find that even if a dramatic event occurs, as I said, you will be in joy. If there is discord in your family and you are in joy, it is the intelligence of light. If there is discord in your family and you must restore balance at all costs, it is not the intelligence of light. It's as simple as that. But again, in this family area, I don't know which family it is, but you can also put the burden back on. You have psychologists, therapists who are specialized in the family, I don't know. But avoid, as much as possible, to invest yourself totally in things that concern the ephemeral. I didn't tell you to give up what you have to live, because there is a sense of responsibility that you have to have. But simply, to be light on that, and I explained why. That's how you become more and more clear, more and more awake. It's very simple. It has been said, love or suffering, joy or suffering. And it will be clearer and clearer and clearer for everyone, no matter what you say and under what circumstances. With children, with parents, with work, with husband, with home. I'm listening to you. Voices. There are no more written questions. So, we can question, of course, already by coming to the microphone so that we don't have to repeat it. Voice. I think they're asleep. All of them? Voice. Maybe not, but. So let them sleep, it will come. There is one who will wake up shaken by the intelligence of light to ask a question. It is very important what I have told you, in a few words, in relation to the process that concerns the whole body, because it is really as important for those who have active crowns and who feel the energies as for those who have never felt anything. And I say this mainly for them so that they don't worry and wonder if they don't have tremor or Parkinson's disease. Voice. We have someone for a question. So, at least one of us is awake, then. Brother. Yes, I would like to know if this particular phase of resorption with the planet grid, with the solar flash, what is it called, the white light? Will it in fact make it possible to absorb the whole event, or will part of the event remain present? Then, the whole creation is dissolved. It never existed, it was a dream. As has been explained, time and space do not exist. By living time zero, you will live agape even if there is resistance. Who, having lived agape, even for a minute, can still imagine anything about consciousness? No brother and sister who lives in agape. Only those who experience pre-consciousness strive to maintain visions, scenarios and futures. So, of course, and I said that the white paradise was being set up, you feel the first signs of it for many, the blaze that sets you on fire from everywhere at the ends, the tremors of the body, of the whole body. This really signs the imminence of the white paradise, that is, of what you call the solar flash or the event, as I also call it. It doesn't matter, because at that moment you will have all lived agape whether you like it or not here on this earth, and we are with you since we are all here, without exception, and there is a resonance that is established that passes through time zero and that ignores, of course, distances and ignores time. What happens on earth will be reflected in the whole creation instantly by time zero. And it's instantaneous. And of course, every passing day will reinforce the possibility that the event will be the final act of the dream, without there being anything more necessary to purify afterwards. The more days pass, the more this certainty will grow. Anyway, if there is time after that, it will be extremely limited because we are there, with you and in you, that the whole creation of universes and multiverses is in you. And that you are, as Egba had said since last year, you're the master of time and space, here in this body of flesh, here on earth. So who can imagine, who will be able to imagine after living the stashes and agape return to any consciousness or circumstance? Perhaps only if astrophysical, physical and material conditions allow it, perhaps a few days, a few weeks ago. But, the more days pass, the more everything will be resolved at the same time from the white paradise. And you can't foresee anything about that. It is no longer even necessary to warn anyone or anything. Because what will fall into you is naked joy, it is agape for all creation is touched at the same time, from the collective zero time of the earth. It is the good news that is spread in all dimensions and in all multiverses since everything is in you. We have always told you that the whole creation is in you. And it wasn't a sight of the mind, it's the strict truth. You're about to find out. So, yes, the more days pass, the more likely there are that the flash or the event, the trumpets, the call of Mary, no matter what happens, Nibia in any case, yes, that's for sure, correspond to the moment of the end of the collective, universal and multiversal dream. It seems huge for the person. It is unthinkable and totally out of reach of a human being's head and even our own head. Now, the important thing is to live love, isn't it? This is the goal of all your efforts when you're in spirituality, in a couple, with children. Love is offered to you in abundance and you would imagine something else. Only the ego can think such things. The character who is still in the story, who thinks he has something to accomplish, something to live for because there are his children, because there are his parents, because he doesn't feel ready. But all this is about history, not the truth. He who lives the truth and who is the truth can no longer imagine, for a second, perpetuating any form of consciousness whatsoever. When Iba and Head Chief now tell you that consciousness is a disease, yes, I have nothing but that, in relation to beatitude. All dreams, as he told you, have been lived. You don't need to remember it, it's in you on time zero too. And living time zero effectively puts an end, as the Head Chief said, to the myth of creation. You'll never make it through. And Bida said it, Nizar Gadaya, Bida when he was incarnate repeated it and hammered it all the time. Something that even we, the ancients, have not perceived or even lived. We have lived it as you have lived it for many of you now since the last Metatronic Impulse on December 14, 2018. Some of you, by the way, were there, I recognize. Any other questions? But remember, you don't have to protect yourself. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, anyway. You will all lose it because you are living life. But there are many ways to lose your body. There are many ways to eradicate consciousness as a disease, simple and light ways and many ways, as I warned you, that will turn into a nightmare. But all this is just a game, even the suffering, and sometimes enormous suffering. But it doesn't matter, just behind it is joy. And joy puts an end to all history and suffering and to any notion of responsibility to believe that you are also, indeed, you're always told that you have things to take on. But you'll even laugh at these. But for the time being, we must assume them. There is no question of leaving your wife, children, home, profession to go and take refuge I don't know where. It's about taking responsibility and staying calm. One more question. Maybe we'll wake up another one. Laughs. Sister, my question is, what about the people who have left this world? They are no longer on the earthly level who have died on these 3 days. Will they also suffer this? But it's universal. Even those who don't want to, even those who oppose, even those who don't suspect anything, once you recognize yourself, you can't lose it anymore. So, it concerns, I repeat, all of creation. You don't have to worry about the children. You don't have to worry about people dreaming somewhere. You don't have to worry about those who don't believe in it. It's their problem, let them dream like we said. It's inevitable, inexorable, as Ekpa said, and it's happening right now. What do you want to save? The illusion. When you discover life, when you live agape in its totality, it is only the person or the ego who asks himself questions about wanting to save children, husband, house, profession or anything, or conscience itself. Many of you are living it. Ask the brothers who are living it for information. They are well present, they are not in the escape from reality or in the astral. They are totally balanced. They are really and concretely, per million, in the agape state. Find out more about it. I don't really see the meaning of that question. Voice. Our sister who asked the question means that she was talking about the deceased. Des. Voices. Of the deceased persons. Some of the deceased passed into stasis, others were reincarnated here on this earth. But the deceased will all live the same experience. I said all the creation. Whether you are incarnated in a body of flesh, whether you are stuck in the astral, or whether you are in stasis, already up there for several years, does not change anything. I said it well, Ekpa said it again and again, it concerns the whole creation. No entity, no conscience, no blade of grass, no grain of sand can escape it. By living time zero, there is no time, space or dimension. You live in white paradise, ecstasy, beatitude. No entity will want to escape from this. And who would want it anyway? Only the one who has not lived the beatitude. But the one who has experienced the beatitude, even for a minute, can never again be fooled by creation, even if he is affected by emotional feedback or memories. But whatever, that's what creates clarity. That's what triggers lucidity. As I said at the time, take care of your bud, your heart. It is the best service you can provide to the creation, to find yourself. And it is thanks to you who are already in agape, that all this has been immortized and that the event and the final event will be merged at the same initial instant of the zero time. It's much more than just white heaven. But it starts with the white paradise in the sequence. You can continue. We'll wake them up one by one. Laughs. Voice. My cats seem so peaceful to me. The what? Voice. My cats, or cat? Voice. The cats of our sisters. Ah, I thought there was a cat in the room. Laughs. Voice. So her cats seem so peaceful to her. Are all animals already in agape? They are in a natural state. Yes, of course. They obey the functions assigned to them by their attributes, even to eat other animals or other. But of course, the whole of creation is aware of it. Only the dreamers of this land are still sleeping. Animals, plants, the peoples of nature are aware of this. Besides, some of them no longer want to communicate with you. It's no use anymore. You no longer need words, you no longer need stories. They are here, though. Silence allows zero time. I did talk about silence. I did not speak of recollection, alignment or prayer. The silence. Do the silence in your head. Make the silence of your words. Many years ago, among the elders, you lived the silence of words, the silence of looks. Just try not to say any words, not here, at home for a few hours or so, not to look at anything but your feet. You'll see the difference in what you experience and perceive. Much more intensively than the exercises you conducted 10 years ago, for some of you. Silence of words, silence of gaze, just that and you're free. I said a few hours, not even 24 hours. If you agree not to speak, if you agree not to look at anything other than your feet, you will be fully available, to live what is to be lived, the white paradise and agape. There is no need to ask for anything or to set in motion any energy or vibration whatsoever. Because it is the words that led you into the person, the words you say. Because that's what you look at, the shapes, the landscapes that keep you in that person. If there is no more gaze, you're internalized. And if, in addition, there are no more words, you're real and you go straight back to agape. Try it, you'll see. The two enemies of truth are vision, first of all, and then words. That is why we insisted so much, 2 or 3 years ago, on silence. You can walk in nature alone without talking and looking at your feet, without looking at anything else. And you will see what you will experience. It will work as well as the technique without technique ever gave you. That is, to cross ankles and hands in front of the chest and repeat agape, for harm. It will be even more direct, because you put your character in silence, from the moment you don't look, from the moment you don't speak. There's no way we're doing this for weeks. I said a few hours. And you will see at that moment, that indeed, it is the best way to make yourself available and the most direct. One more question. Brother, it is the little bike that would like to know, if after a phase of the Absolute could redemonstrate itself from the multiverses. That's impossible. The dream is over. Creation was a dream that ended in a nightmare. You live it and we lived it on this earth. Once you live agape and the Absolute, and as everyone will live it and begin to live it, no more dreams will be possible, because all dreams have been lived. But don't see it as a linear notion, because whenever tells you that everything is going to be decreated, but as it was never created, creation was dreamed of. It is the first manifestation of consciousness, but once again the answer is not the answer to the little bike, it is simply agape. Live agape and you will understand everything, you'll have inner knowledge, not of history but of the truth. When Baidu ever tell you that this world is a dream, that you will never pass, creation, the universes were created and will disappear, that you will always be there. That's how you see it's a dream. That's how you get out of the nightmare. Your head is of no use to you. As I say, don't look at anything and do silence, you'll see the difference. It will be instantaneous. Already, more than 10 years ago, when you were doing that, there were changes. Brothers and sisters accessed spirit consciousness more easily, through, of course, the yoga of unity, the yoga of truth, among other things. But if you accept what I have just said in relation to the gaze, to the silence, you will see something other than spirit consciousness. You will live the beatitude. You will no longer give expression to your own emotions, you will no longer attach any importance to them, you will no longer be subject to your habits that you have not seen, and even, I would say, to suffering and even disease. The light heals you and sometimes makes you sick to heal you of the idea of believing you this body or the idea of believing you a person. The silence of words and gaze today has the same effectiveness. And the closer you get to July, the more true it will be. It is not a question of practice or technique but of checking for yourself the effect of not looking at anything, the effect of not talking and seeing what is happening in a few hours. Of course, you have countless other ways. There is the technique without Eber's technique, there are the head crystals of the head, you have a lot of things that have been communicated to you about that. But I would say that the most important thing to do is to stay calm, that's the most important thing. One more question. Voice. We have a question. Sister. Hello Omre Arm. Can you tell us about the Ain Sephor, the Ain Sephor, the Ain Sephor? The Ain what? Brothers and sisters. La Ain Sephor. I don't understand anything. I don't understand that word. Voice. The Ain Sephor. Ah. The Ain Sephor. It's not quite the same accent right now. We can't say anything about it and nothing can talk about it. It is indescribable. It has been translated as the word agape, because it was Ebba who found this word that really and etymologically and vibratorily corresponds to the truth. Everything that can be said about the Ain Sephor could only nourish your head and would not allow you to live it at all, because for the ego and for the head it is nothing. It is total darkness, even for spirit consciousness. It's the horror and yet it's the truth. It is total beatitude. As the stars have expressed it to you. My Nandamoy has lived extremely long periods of her life within the absolute, that is, the Ain Sephor. It is beyond the manifestation. She has expressed it perfectly in her life experience. What is beyond the light, which is at the origin and source of the light, at the origin of the dream, at the origin of the forms, is love. Love is present in all creation. But human love has nothing to do with that love. It is not a feeling, it is not an emotion, it is not an attachment, it cannot be directed to a person. It is directed towards everyone with the same intensity. It is the source of love, the source of light, the origin of the dream and the end of the dream. It's the perfect state. It is the natural state, the eternal I, the absolute I, that you can find today, here incarnated, by being present, in the present moment in its entirety. That's the gift. But don't count on me to feed your head on the Ain Sephor, because we can't say anything about it. And that's what Nizar Gadea said when he talked about the Parade Brahman. Live it, but do not question the Parade Brahman. Without it you will inevitably move away from it. It's like the Hayat HaKadesh. You have the illustration on your head of the four elements through the triangles of fire, water, earth and air, on which we had talked so much about 10 years ago. And the Hayat HaKadesh, they are on the 4 points of the little crown of the head. You are living it, but who could give a definition of it? You will give a definition like the cherubim, that is to say these little angels with wings and all chubby and all babies. That's a representation, that's not the truth. Live what you are and everything will be simple. Totally simple. But do not expect to rely on any understanding or knowledge to live it. You'll never make it, until the event, of course. But you're going to torture yourself. Understanding is the lived experience. It cannot be an intellectual understanding, nor even an energetic one, nor even a vibratory progression that will lead you there. That's impossible. It is sacrifice, as Ebba said. It is the crossing, the embrace that makes it happen. As long as you think you can understand it from the person, you are not available to live it. It is the Parade Brahman, the absolute, the Ain Sephor. It's the same thing. This is what is before Keter, what is before the light, what is before love. Of course, for ego and spirit consciousness, they call it nothingness. Poor for them, they don't live agape. If they lived agape, they would no longer be able to express the slightest doubt about this love. But of course, all those who do not live it, and who are opposed, because those who are not aware, let them dream, but those who are opposed to it head-on, they simply demonstrate by the posture, their words, the writings, that they do not live anything of agape. Besides, they will never talk to you about love. And in their lives, will they be like children loving everyone with the same intensity? That can't fool anyone. You can deceive with words, you can deceive with visions, you can also be deceived and wrong, but not with agape. That has been said at length, in broad terms and across the board. You can only recognize yourself in this. If you reject this, it is because you have not found yourself, no matter what you have lived through and what you say about it. Look at the brothers and sisters here who live agape. You see well the field of love that is around them, you feel it. You feel their gift of service, their gift of listening, their state of humility. It is real, it is not pretended. The one who does not live agape will settle into spiritual postures. He'll believe such a God, such a master, such a guru, such an actor, but this is cinema. The being who lives agape is simple. He is human. He does not need vision, he no longer needs energy, vibrations or visions. It is in a natural and spontaneous state. He has become human again, worthy. This is the true manner if you prefer, as it was written, what has been called the Son of Man, who is also the Son of God. But the true God, that is, you. That is, Christ said, I and my Father are one, but today you can say, I and creation are one. And we are no one. It is the consciousness that always believes itself to be someone. There is something to do, to evolve, to transform, to improve, but of course, the one who lives agape can no longer be fooled by this. He can only be human, simple, loving. He doesn't care about visiting the ships, feeling the energies, the places, the vibrations. He is available every minute for agape. It can be seen in his eyes, it can be seen in his behavior, it can be seen in his actions and every minute. And I don't think you find that in people who refuse the truth. On the contrary. Whatever they say and whatever they write. Whatever they do and whatever they see. To be nothing and to be everything is to be everything. But first you have to be nothing. They want to be everything before they are nothing. It's not possible, it'll never work. That's the sacrifice. This is the resurrection. That's bliss, that's all it is. No vibration, no matter how bright, can bring you to the truth, it has approached you. But today, you see these brothers and sisters, from all over the world, they are Christs, really. But they don't give a shit about historical Christ. They don't care about ships, because they know that the truth is lived. Whatever the universe, whatever the story, whatever their body, whatever their concern, it is an unchanging state that takes up all space and time, and you can no longer compromise with that. Saying yes but I have this to do, yes but I have a sense of responsibility, I have to do this thing. No, it's going to take you totally, more and more every day. So either you oppose and resist or you accept. But the result is still the same. One more question. Voice. A sister is there. Hello, I have a lot and more songs in my ears. Why, and will that change? Yes, it's going to get worse. You will see it, for those who have the song of the soul and the song of the spirit, it is the sound, in fact, of what has been called the Marian channel or, if you prefer, in Hindu what was called the Entokarana, the celestial horn. Of course, what you hear, this increasingly high-pitched whistling, is the song of creation, which will lead to the ultimate sound that no consciousness can resist. It is the choir of the angels or the seventh sound related to the neda. The neda is the sound of the soul that appears on the left and on both sides afterwards, it is the song of the spirit, it is the sound of the Marian channel. And you will notice that this sound has amplified in intensity and also amplified in the space of your head, but also becomes more and more acute. That's normal. What you're hearing here is what's going to appear externally. It's the trumpets. And that's what wakes you up, gets you out of your dream. Because when you see that sound can no longer allow you to hear anyone, and takes up all the space of your body, with tremor, and all your consciousness, the time will come to put you to bed and wait. And besides, you can't do otherwise, from everywhere. In fact, you will interact with each other in every way possible and you will find that the process is consistent. It will affect both children and the elderly. From the moment the event is collectively underway, you can only notice the appearance of the sound you hear inside and outside. The whole world, the trees, the houses, the animals will start to vibrate before your eyes and poof, to disappear. Before you even fell into stasis. Everything that seemed solid to you will appear to you under its corpuscular vibratory structure. And you'll see that it's all wind. Moreover, the matter is empty, as scientists know. There are protons, neutrons and electrons spinning. Between the two, it's empty. The material consists of 99% of AYOUN. And that void is the parade Brahman. Everything else is only the dream, which has touched and dragged the consciousness. That's all. That's all. So, of course, you'll see, even in the coming days, that all of a sudden you will tremble and see your body disappear yourself, with your eyes open. You're going to look at a tree or a flower and all of a sudden it's going to shake and no longer exist. Temporarily. But this will not be the case at the time of the wide paradise. This will be definitive. I can't be any clearer. But at the same time, as I said, there will be such joy that will grow and such love that you can only recognize yourself. That you will have fewer and fewer questions, and I would say, more and more greed, to live this permanently. It's all been written, ever told you. Even before creation, this is the strict truth. And this could only be inscribed in all consciences. But not only within all consciences, I would say within everything that appears inert, even a grain of sand, and I go even further. It was written in every atom created, in every universe, in every multiverse. It is not the proton and the electron who participate in the dream. It's the neutron and other exotic particles that scientists know perfectly well today. It is perfectly coherent, but totally incoherent for the ego. And yet for science, true tough science is a truth. All your scientists know that this world is nothing more than a computer simulation. And that's why I ever talked about video games. Yes, it's a video game. When the power goes out, there's no video game. When there is no more electron, there is no more video game. It's as simple as that. The electron stops spinning around. The rosebud has been discovered. End of the myth of creation. We have experienced it as elders since we stopped speaking out for more than a year. Between January 29th of the previous year and a few months ago, we have been through the same process as you. And it was indispensable. We are all responsible, one and the other, for what was called conscious co-creation. But in the process of the end of the dream of creation, the conscious co-creation that you were to implement, for certain things, and that we, the ancients, have implemented, had to be also, not repaired. It is a bad term that used by head chief. It is not a reparation, it is a restitution, to the truth. And for you it's the same thing, in 3 days. Because you are in the densest level, at the origin of the dream. And that you have, and we have with you, all lived. But you're in a body of flesh, carbonated. And it could only happen in a body of flesh, carbonaceous. And I repeat, it concerns all the atoms and particles of creation. I can't say it better. One more question. Sister, when you mention this, it brings me great joy. I want to kiss you. Laughs. You're going to sting yourself with my beard. Laughs. Yes, of course, because you know what it is. You live agape even if there are emotional upsurges. But put yourself in the place of the one who is in his little spiritual search, who has made a lot of effort, who cares about his history. He can't understand. But when you express this, you emit a magnetic field that is linked to the double terrace of the heart. You emit I'm zero. And the other can only recognize himself, whatever his character and personal history may say. That's how you spread the good news, as the head chief said. You do not need a speech to explain what the absolute, the aim set for, the energies, the vibrations, the universe is, the different bodies is. Be yourself and you will contaminate them all. As soon as you're in this joy, you contaminate them, all of creation. Where you put your feet down, the soil is contaminated. Where you look, it's contaminated. Where you talk, it's contaminated. Again, you can't accept my words. Especially for those who are in opposition. You can only live it. Live it and we'll talk about it later if we get a chance. When you are in beatitude, and indeed you have expressed it, and I think other brothers and sisters here could express it. What can stories, minks, scenarios, forms, bodies, even the body of eternity do to you? You have found yourself, you live the beatitude even if it is not permanent, and you know that it is the truth. You can never doubt that, can you? That's impossible. It's all the more detestable, as you said earlier, when you have recurring emotions or abandonment syndromes. Because you live the truth, at some point you start to experience false things. It's very disturbing. But that's what makes you lucid. And which also makes it possible to cross what remains to be crossed. One more question. Sister, before being in the understanding now, of this event, to accept the light and no longer have fears, finally, about a year ago, I was afraid, now I no longer have any fear and I think, I will have the answer, fear? Yes, fear. There was a lot of talk about the Beast brand, the chip. I told myself, I mustn't get sucked in. Now all this also seems to me to be one of the fears that I no longer have. I mean, to put it on or not to put it on, if it is put in place before the event, it no longer matters either. We don't even have to resist, to say to ourselves, you don't even have to think about it. Laughs even for what you call your waves there, of the latest generation, which kills people all their lives. But if the jokers do that, they release you even faster. What more could you ask for? What is embarrassing is the suffering, yes. The illusion of suffering. But let them plug it in, what do you call it, the 5G. Whether they connect the 5G or put their Tesla antenna in service, there, with hardware or they put chips on you, remember the humor. Ebba has revealed to you the quality of the word/verb, which is your first and last name. However, it was the horns that triggered you, what is called the civil status, the birth certificate. They created all this to enslave you. To freeze you in a name that they thought was their property. You see a little bit of the dark humor of creation. It is thanks to them, who had frozen you in a name and a first name, that you free yourself. That's wonderful, no. The simulacrum meets the sacred. The puppets only played a role. And there is no role superior to another, since everything was written. If everything is written, all you have to do is live it. You don't need to know all the writings, but you can only see it. And remember what the people of the Cetaceans said, that as soon as the sun eclipses on July 2nd, it will move, in all directions, by the spread of joy. Whatever the external events. Do we have any further questions? Voice. Yes. Why are we talking about Christ Michael? Why this association? It is mainly from one of the elders, when he was incarnate, Steiner, who associated Michael's mission with Christ's mission. That's absolutely right, but don't get lost in stories. Forget Christ, you're Christ and you are Michael. It still nourishes the mind. And it is no longer a question of nourishing the mind or any intellectual understanding, but of nourishing the possibility of living agape. That's right. Everything else is about spirituality, esotericism takes you nowhere. The only true knowledge is inner and it is linked to the lived experience. Everything else is taking you away now. Forget even what we told you during and after the heavenly wedding season. Forget everything I could say about when I was incarnate. Forget all the referencing systems of esotericism. Be true, natural and spontaneous, be totally present and you will be free. Everything else, you lock yourself in. Now it's going to be more and more verifiable. If you turn away from agape, even without living it, you will cause suffering, mental, physical, and bodily, but also in your life. And you will see it consistently. It is up to you to know, love or suffering. There is no other choice. And all the acts you carry out can only lead you to love or suffering. If it is suffering, it means that the acts you carry out are linked to your ego, your character, your being. If, on the other hand, it leads to love, you are the intelligence of the light and you are true and you are in the present instant. There are no other alternatives. In fact, in the Christ trilogy, Michael, it was rather the Christ, Mary, Michael trilogy that was the new Eucharist. Which was the celebration of the Three-in-One, the Trinity. And which corresponds, which was a prerequisite for the new Eucharist and what you have developed with the head chief and also Ebba, concerning the respiratory movement at the level of the head, which frees the head. Then free your head rather than taking you into esoterico-energetic cogitations that will lead you, today, strictly nowhere else but in suffering. The more you prune all this esotericism, which was useful, at one point, the more free you are. The more you maintain esoteric knowledge, the more you will suffer. And you're already seeing it. One more question. Voice. Yes, we have a sister who is getting closer. Let's let her get closer. If it's not to bite us, that's fine. Sister. In fact, it was certainly mentioned earlier, but it didn't happen to me. As much as agape is fine, it's cool, it's good, but zero time is what exactly? Is it the same thing? It's agape. Well, thank you, that's great. That's all. It is the balance of the double terrace of the chest. It is the alchemy of the new Eucharist with the ascending crown of the heart, the triangle of the triunity, with the Christ and metatronic impulse that has passed through the Eucharistic point behind, with the Marian channel, with the wave of life, with the crown of the head that fused with the crown of the heart and with the ascensional flows and also the energies of Kundalini that rose to the heart, that penetrated the heart through Eucharistia. And it will be, there too, more and more clear-cut. This is what had been called, love or suffering. Who would choose suffering over love? It's impossible. One other thing. Sister, hello OMA, yesterday Fehwan, at the end of what she was saying, told us that she had yesterday the end of the unveiling. That's right. What does she mean by that? That everything will appear more and more clearly to you in relation to love and suffering. In relation to your positioning, in relation to your ultimate habits, to your last links. This means that there is not only an individual increase in the process, but also that it is becoming more and more collective. You will see it in your family, in your work, with your children, with your parents, with your friends too, from everywhere. That's the good news spreading. Nothing more and nothing less. And you will see that the epidemic, the pandemic Ebola was talking about, is indeed spreading all over the world. During the last meetings in Quebec, I had the opportunity to express a number of things. The lighthouse of mankind has been lit. In all the countries of the world, on this occasion, which fell, I remind you, also during a religious holiday. It doesn't matter if it was falsified, which was named Pentecost. And which corresponded to yet another and ultimate impulse of the intelligence of the light that allows the opening of the period to July 2nd. As announced and decreed by the cetacean people and by fame. One other thing. Or maybe time is up. Do we have any time left? Voice. We have 10 minutes left. So, one last question. If there are, otherwise we'll stop there. After that there's noon, so you know, hey, I'm not going to take his time. So, we'll stop now if you want. So we're going to stop. I will pass on all my blessings to you. I thank you for listening, even asleep, to what has been exchanged. It penetrated you, even if you didn't hear anything, it doesn't matter. I tell you, see you very soon. I give you all my blessings and all my love which is yours. I look forward to seeing you soon and goodbye. All, goodbye. Thank you, thank you. Through Jean-Luc Young. The Transformations. English translation. LMF.